You were not raised to command. You were shaped to serve. From the first breath of language, you were taught to make yourself agreeable, to smile in discomfort, to yield in conflict, to soften your strength so others would not feel the tremor of it. You were trained in obedience disguised as civility, not in sovereignty, but in submission. Respect was never the goal, usefulness was. You were conditioned not to be feared, but to be needed. And so you learned to apologize for your clarity, to second-guess your instincts, to wrap your truths in cotton so they would not cut, not realizing that power does not live in kindness unarmed, but in necessity unspoken. Power does not ask permission. It takes shape in silence, behind closed doors, beneath the surface where the real bargains are struck. You've been taught to be transparent, but transparency is the tool of the watched, not the watcher. You've been taught to be accountable, but accountability is a leash when not bound by reciprocity. You've been taught to tell the truth, but truth without timing is suicide. There is no virtue in a ruler who bleeds before the knife is drawn. No strength in a leader who mistakes validation for authority. Power is not given. It is seized or it is performed until it is indistinguishable from the real. You were not trained in the art of masks. You were trained to believe the face must always match the heart. But the heart is a liability when exposed, and loyalty cannot be commanded by honesty alone. You want to be respected? Stop trying to be understood. Respect is born not from goodness, but from inevitability, from the sense that you cannot be ignored, cannot be moved, cannot be broken. Not because you shout, but because your silence is dangerous. Because people sense that you see more than you say, that you are not at their mercy, even when you appear to be in their service. You were trained to flatter those above you, manage those below you, and never threaten the order that keeps you in your place. But power does not bloom in comfort. It emerges from fracture from the moment you realize that usefulness is a cage with velvet bars. They will praise your cooperation while plotting your containment. They will reward your sacrifices until you become inconvenient. And they will discard you with the same hand that once applauded you. Because in the theater of power, sentiment is an illusion and memory is short. Do not mistake proximity for security. The closer you stand to the throne, the more precisely your loyalty will be measured, and the more swiftly betrayal will be assumed. Fear, not love, preserves order. Not the trembling fear of violence, but the quiet fear of exclusion, of becoming irrelevant, replaceable, invisible. And so the wise ruler never rests in popularity. He rests in control. Not control of bodies, but of perception. Not through surveillance, but anticipation. Not through force, but inevitability. To be respected is not to be liked. It is to be needed, even when hated. To be indispensable in moments that matter, and invisible in the moments that don't. A real leader knows how to disappear and return at the precise moment when presence becomes power. Do not chase influence. Cultivate leverage. Influence fades when novelty dies. Leverage endures when others cannot move without you. You've been taught to inspire, but inspiration is fleeting. It excites, it doesn't anchor. People will follow a dream, only so far, but they will follow strength until the end, even if they resent it. To lead is not to offer hope. It is to organize fear, to channel desire, to regulate chaos without appearing to do so. The best power does not announce itself. It breathes behind the curtain. It listens while others speak. It waits, and when it acts fully. You were trained to fill silence with explanation. Break that habit. Let your silence weigh more than their noise. Let your refusals teach more than their lectures. Let your restraint reveal what your force would only distort. The one who rules with words alone is already disarmed. Do not reveal your full intention. Let others guess at your aim. For the mind that is never fully read becomes a mirror. They will see themselves in your silence, and you will control them without lifting a finger. You've been taught to earn your place. But in the game of power, merit is not enough. Visibility, perception, fear, these are the coins of the realm. Do not seek fairness. Fairness is a story told to children and the defeated. Seek positioning. Seek timing. Seek the edge. Your usefulness will be forgotten. Your indispensability will not. You want to lead? Then stop asking for permission to exist. Walk like you already own the room, not because of arrogance, but because you understand how rooms work. Power is not seized through effort alone. It is seized through understanding. Understanding of fear, of ambition, of hunger. Every man walks with an invisible wound. The one who learns to speak to that wound commands him. Do not try to be loved. Love turns to envy, and envy waits. Be respected. Be necessary. Be feared not for your cruelty, but for your absence. Let them imagine what you are capable of. Let them wonder what would happen if you turned your gaze elsewhere. You were not trained to rule, but you can retrain yourself. In the quiet hours, in the moments no one sees, in the calculations you never voice. Learn to read the room. Learn to shape desire. Learn to disappear and return when it matters. And remember, the world does not reward the most virtuous. It rewards the most prepared. You were trained to be useful. Break that training. Become respected. Or become forgotten. That is the choice. And there is no third path. They will ask for transparency while hiding their own calculations behind veils of policy and protocol. They will demand authenticity from you while masking their intentions in layers of institutional language. This is not hypocrisy, it is structure. You've been taught to think honesty is a virtue in itself, but in power, honesty is an opening. Every truth is a disclosure. Every disclosure is a map. And every map leads somewhere someone else may use against you. The wise do not lie, they choose what to reveal, when and to whom, like a general choosing the terrain of battle. Not every truth must be spoken. Not every silence is dishonest. There is a difference between being deceitful and being unreadable. The first invites contempt. The second commands respect. You must understand the geometry of perception. In politics, the truth does not live in facts, but in frames. The same gesture can be seen as noble or manipulative, depending on the context you control. The same action can be betrayal or strategy, depending on who holds the narrative. Do not fight to prove your innocence. Fight to control the lens through which your actions are seen. The crowd does not remember details, it remembers impressions, and impressions can be sculpted. Sculpt them. That is not deception, that is survival. If you wish to rise, study failure, not in books and people. The fallen carry lessons carved into their silence. Look at those who were once admired, now forgotten. Those who were once indispensable, now replaced. They were too eager to be loved, too proud to be feared, too slow to pivot, too open with their ambition. The world does not hate ambition. It hates visible ambition without tact. The leader who ascends is the one who moves like water, adapts, flows, and wears down the stone not with force, but with persistence. To endure in power, you must become fluent in human contradiction. People do not want the truth. They want reassurance, but they also crave strength. They want to feel protected, but also to believe they are free. You must give them the illusion of choice, while narrowing the path so subtly they follow the one you planned. Offer them reasons to obey that feel like reasons they chose. Let them mistake your calculation for consensus. Let them believe they arrived at your conclusion on their own. The best chains are those worn proudly. There is no nobility in being the only honest man in a room of predators. That is not integrity. That is negligence. A true leader does not announce his virtue. He uses it sparingly, like fire in winter. Enough to warm the room, not enough to burn the house. Show your values only when they serve your aims. Do not wield them like shields. Shields can be taken, they can be broken. Wield your silence instead, your stillness, your patience. In a world that worships noise, restraint is power. You will be betrayed, if not today, then tomorrow. Betrayal is not an accident, it is the cost of proximity. Those closest to you know where the softest places are. They know where the armor ends. Expect betrayal not as a tragedy, but as weather. Prepare for it, anticipate it. Let no betrayal find you unguarded. And when you strike back, do not do so in anger. Strike like the frost, sudden, irreversible, quiet. Let your retaliation become a lesson, not a spectacle. That is how memory becomes armor. Those who lead with emotion burn quickly. Those who lead with calculation endure. Emotion is a fire, it illuminates, but it blinds. It consumes. Calculation is the ember, quiet, patient, enduring. Build your decisions like fortresses, not for today, but for the siege that has not yet begun. The storm always comes, and when it does, you will not rise by what you feel. You will rise by what you prepared. Do not ask whether you are good. Ask whether you are effective. Ask whether your presence bends outcomes, whether your silence carries weight, whether your withdrawal creates imbalance. A true ruler is not the one who speaks loudest, but the one whose absence shifts the room. Become that absence. Let people fear your silence more than they trust another's voice. The hunger for control is not shameful. It is natural. It is what built civilizations, conquered empires, wrote history in blood and parchment. What matters is how it is tempered. Not denied, but honed. A wild flame consumes. A focused flame shapes steel. Control your need for control. Direct it. Use it. Do not become its servant. Become its master. The world rewards the appearance of virtue more than virtue itself. Understand this. It is not enough to be just. You must be seen to be just, at the right moment, by the right eyes. You must know when to appear merciful, and when mercy is weakness. When to appear generous, and when generosity signals vulnerability. The theater of politics does not demand authenticity, it demands consistency in illusion. Master this theater. Do not despise it, use it. Because the people remember not who you were, but how you made them feel, and feelings are shaped by spectacle. Most people follow because they are afraid to lead. They fear the burden, the exposure, the responsibility. They prefer the safety of following someone who appears certain, even if that certainty is a mask. Do not waste your energy proving you are right. Prove you are inevitable. Certainty, real or performed, is magnetic. People are drawn to those who walk like they know where they're going. Even if the destination is unknowable, walk with that certainty. Let them follow. The path to leadership is not a ladder, it is a battlefield. Every step forward is taken from someone else. Every gain must be defended, and every defense invites challenge. If you seek peace, do not seek power. If you seek approval, do not seek leadership. Power is not peace. Leadership is not applause. It is exposure. It is isolation. It is decision under fire. One day, you will face a choice where all options are wrong, where every path costs something: your reputation, your alliances, your soul. In that moment, you will understand that leadership is not about being right. It is about absorbing consequence. About standing in the fire so others don't have to, or pretending to, so they believe they are safe. Either way, the fire is yours. That is the cost. That is the burden. That is the throne. There will be moments when you are surrounded, not by enemies, but by allies whose loyalty is conditional, whose smiles are transactions, whose support is as deep as your current utility. Do not be deceived by their praise. Do not anchor your position to their affection. Their allegiance is not to you, but to the momentum you represent. The moment your rise stalls, they will drift to silence, to neutrality, to your rival. This is not betrayal, it is gravity. Power attracts, power also repels. Hold no illusions about this. Build your house not on their applause, but on leverage. The only friendship that survives in power is that which is bound by shared interest or mutual destruction. Learn the art of removal, not in violence, but in stillness. Know when to withdraw a favor, a signal, an invitation. The absence of your gaze can be more punishing than 1,000 accusations. The exclusion from your plans more painful than open hostility. Those who cross you should not be punished in noise, but in omission. They should begin to feel the cold without ever hearing the storm coming. That is the quiet discipline of command, to starve threats of your presence and nourish allies with your silence until they beg for your attention. Most rulers fail not because they lacked intelligence, but because they clung too long to what should have been abandoned. The failed policy, the broken alliance. The once loyal subordinate who has begun to build a base of their own. Sentiment clouds judgment. History punishes sentiment. The world changes faster than loyalties can be managed. If you are to lead, you must kill your darlings, not with cruelty, but with precision. The ability to sever without hatred is a mark of maturity. The capacity to discard without shame is the sign of a strategist. You must also know how to create belief, not in yourself, but in the structure that holds you. People do not follow a man. They follow an idea, a myth, a narrative that explains their place in the world and disguises your control as their choice. You must become the architect of that narrative. Build it with symbols, with stories, with rituals. Reinforce it with language that flatters their instincts while hardening your grip. Let them see you not as a person, but as a function, a principle, a necessity. When they cease to see you as optional, you will no longer need to shout. The system will do it for you. Remember this: no structure lasts forever. The moment you believe your throne is untouchable, it begins to erode. Arrogance invites exposure. Entitlement invites resentment. Rotate your power. Rotate your presence. Never be fully visible. Never fully predictable. Leave space for speculation. Let your absence create a hunger for your return. Even God retreats behind silence, and from that silence springs faith. You must learn this rhythm: presence, absence, command, retreat, visibility, shadow. That is how empires endure. Study your enemies more than your allies. Your allies will not show you the boundaries of your influence, your enemies will. They will probe where you are weakest, where you are slowest, where you are most distracted. Each attack is information, each opposition is a mirror. Do not waste your hatred on them. Weaponize their ambition. Let them reveal the terrain. Let them make the noise, then move in silence where they cannot see. You have been told that justice is about balance, but balance is not equilibrium. It is control. It is the deliberate weighting of scales in a direction that suits your outcome. Do not wait for justice to appear. Define it, enforce it, wrap it in language that serves your narrative, and deliver it in moments that reinforce your inevitability. People will accept harshness if it feels consistent. They will accept loss if it feels fair. But they will never accept unpredictability. Be sharp, but be clear. Be feared, but be understandable. The terror that cannot be named becomes chaos, and chaos eats the throne. You were not trained for this, but you can retrain. Every instinct you suppressed, assertiveness, watchfulness, control, must now be honed. Every lesson you were taught about vulnerability being strength must be tested against consequence. Vulnerability is not strength if it costs you your position. It is only strength when it is deployed with calculation, when it is performed at moments that serve to disarm, to redirect, to humanize without weakening. Do not bare your soul to the mob. Offer them a shadow of it, enough to believe you still bleed, but never enough to let them see where to cut. Every throne rests on a lie, not always a malicious one. Sometimes it is simply the illusion of permanence. the fiction of control, the fantasy of order. You must protect that lie, not out of deception, but out of necessity. Civilization itself is built on layers of these illusions: law, borders, identities, hierarchies. If you strip them all down, the naked truth is unbearable. Power is the keeper of these illusions. It must adapt them, edit them, renew them, or collapse with them. Be wary of those who speak often of truth, especially in politics. The more one clings to truth as a banner, the more likely it is they seek to use it as a weapon. Truth in politics is rarely pure. It is always positioned, always filtered through the prism of need, timing, opportunity. If you must use truth, use it like a scalpel, not a sword. Cut precisely, quietly, never emotionally. You will face moments where silence is the only power you have left. Do not squander it. A well-timed silence can do what no speech can. It can allow your enemies to overreach, your allies to fill the vacuum, your rivals to guess wrong. In silence, your shape becomes undefined. And the undefined is dangerous. Never clarify too quickly. Mystery is not weakness, it is a tool. The game you are playing is not fair. It never has been. But fairness is not the point. Survival is. Continuity is. Influence is. Do not fight to level the field. Fight to understand it. Once you understand it, you can bend it. Once you bend it, you can rise. But rise carefully. Rise knowing that every summit you reach becomes visible to those waiting for your fall. Rise with one hand on the ladder and one hand on the knife, because even your ascent invites challengers, and even your victories become targets. And when you reach that moment when you sit where others dreamed of standing, when your presence is felt in rooms you do not enter, remember that power is not kept by the same means through which it is won. The conquest is loud, the maintenance is quiet. Conquest demands ambition, maintenance demands paranoia. Never confuse the two. Never stop watching the horizon. Never believe the war is over. Power is a living thing. It must be fed with attention, fed with adaptation, fed with the cold discipline of control. There is no peace at the top, only balance, only vigilance, only the quiet hum of systems working beneath your gaze, and the knowledge that if you look away too long, they will stop. You must choose this life, knowing that respect comes not from being seen, but from being understood as necessary, not from being adored, but from being endured. That is your inheritance. That is the price. That is the throne. And if you are ready, then walk forward, without apology, without illusion, without fear. And as you walk, understand this. You are not walking into clarity, but into layers. Every level of power peels away another simplicity you once held dear, the moral certainties, the tidy lines between right and wrong, the childhood beliefs in fairness, in reward through merit, in virtue being its own justification, all dissolve under the weight of real decisions. Leadership does not deal in absolutes, it deals in dilemmas. The greater good is often purchased with invisible costs. Every choice is a negotiation with consequence, and every clean solution is an illusion sold by those who've never held responsibility. You will be forced to weigh lives like numbers. You will sit across from people and know they are lying, but smile and shake their hand because the lie serves a larger outcome. You will see the weak praise you not because they respect you, but because your shadow reaches further than your name. You will realize that being right is meaningless if you cannot impose it. That being good is worthless if it cannot endure pressure. The world does not obey justice. It obeys pressure, consistency, direction. To rule is not to inspire constantly. It is to contain entropy, to maintain coherence in a system that is always slipping toward fragmentation. You will become the spine that holds it upright, the weight that keeps it grounded, the silence between the notes that makes the music possible. That means sacrifice. Not of blood necessarily, but of ease, of comfort, of the luxury of not knowing. You will carry knowledge that others are spared, the backroom truths, the unpleasant trade-offs, the faces behind the masks. And they will judge you for it, not knowing what you withstood, not knowing what you withheld. That is the paradox of rule. The better you are at it, the more invisible your work becomes. They will accuse you of control, not knowing how much chaos you kept at bay. They will call you cold, not knowing how often you chose necessity over desire. They will remember your silences, not your sleepless nights, your decisions, not your calculations. Let them. That is the cost of permanence. To be respected in history, you must often be resented in the moment. The public remembers image, but the state remembers results. Do not become addicted to being liked. It is a poison to judgment. Every leader who tailored his decisions to applause eventually fell not because he lost his way, but because he followed too closely the echoes of the crowd. Lead from above the noise. Feel it, hear it, even use it, but do not obey it. The crowd does not know what it wants. It wants strength in one breath, softness in the next. It wants vision, but also comfort. It wants saviors it can crucify. Do not give it everything. It will devour you, then look elsewhere. Instead, give them what they need, not what they ask for. Feed them stability cloaked in rhetoric. Feed them purpose wrapped in spectacle. Feed them order wrapped in choice. Let them believe. Let them feel heard, but never hand them the wheel. The wheel is yours, alone. And if ever you forget that, you will wake to find it taken not with noise, but with the quiet confidence of someone who studied your hesitation. No system is secure forever. Every throne rusts. The moment you cease refining your methods, sharpening your instincts, testing your allies, you begin to decay. Power is not static, it must be renewed, defended, evolved. Look to those who fell not in defeat, but in comfort, in success. They thought the machine would run without them. They thought yesterday's loyalty guaranteed tomorrow's silence. They mistook ritual for reverence. Do not make that mistake. You are not loved for who you are. You are needed for what you provide. When you no longer provide it, the fall will not be gradual. It will be sudden, sharp, final. This is why you must never confuse your person with your position. You are not the crown you wear it, and it will not weep when you are gone. Understand that early, and you will avoid the trap of sentiment. You are not building a legacy to be remembered. You are building an architecture that functions beyond your breath. That is your immortality, not in name, but in structure. The system that lasts beyond your body. The fear that echoes even when your voice is gone. Betrayal will come dressed in respect. It will bow before you. It will praise your foresight. It will agree with every word until it moves against you in the night. Do not look for open rebellion. Look for silence where there was once loyalty. Look for delay, for ambiguity, for coordination that suddenly misfires. The dagger is not drawn in anger, it is drawn in calculation. If you sense it too late, the wound is already fatal. So build your court with care. Feed no one so much they can starve you. Let no one grow irreplaceable. Rotate favors, scatter loyalties. Keep every hand half full and half empty. That is how equilibrium is preserved. Never allow pity to drive your decisions. Mercy has its place, but it is not sentimental. It is strategic. You do not spare because of emotion. You spare because the spared now owes you. Because the public needs to believe you have a heart, even as you rule with your head. But the moment your mercy makes you vulnerable, it becomes indulgence. And indulgence, in the eyes of your enemies, is an invitation. Power must be human enough to be accepted, inhuman enough to be obeyed. That is the paradox. If you are too distant, you become myth, and myths can be rewritten. If you are too close, you become man, and men can be killed. You must stand in that space between visible but untouchable, approachable but unknowable. Let them see your gestures, never your motives. Let them hear your voice, never your mind. That distance is your insulation. It is not arrogance. It is survival. And when the time comes to depart, if it comes on your terms, leave like a storm passing. Let the structures tremble at your exit. Let your absence create anxiety. Leave not with noise, but with vacuum. Let the next ruler know they sit in your shadow. Let the people feel that something larger than a man has gone. That is the final act of power, not in staying, but in leaving in such a way that your shape remains long after your steps are gone. Because in the end, what you built is not a legacy of affection. It is a system of necessity, a design of influence, a proof that you understood the world as it is, not as it ought to be. That you walked through the machinery of power with eyes open, hands steady, heart disciplined. That you did not flinch, that you did not weep for what had to be done. That you did not ask the world to be fair, only to be navigable. You were trained to be useful. Now you must become inevitable. And now you stand at the edge not of the world, but of its understanding. You see it for what it is, not a field of dreams, but a theater of positioning. A place where loyalty is currency, fear is leverage, silence is strategy, and power is not a gift, but a burden worn with the precision of armor. You see the masks not as deception, but as necessity. You see ambition not as corruption, but as movement, the only antidote to stagnation. You see clearly now that survival is not a matter of being good, but of being exact. This clarity is not comfort, it is weight, it is exile, but it is also freedom. Because when you shed the need to be understood, to be forgiven, to be approved of by the very world, you must shape you, become untouchable. The ruler no longer bends to the crowd. The sovereign no longer asks to be believed. He moves, he acts, he sets the terms. He becomes the mirror in which others see their weakness or their allegiance. Do not seek rest, seek rhythm, the rhythm of watching without being seen, speaking without revealing, moving without noise. That is your new instinct, that is your new breath. The world will try to soften you again, with praise, with guilt, with offers of peace bought at the price of your position. Do not bargain with those who only value you in comfort. Let them call you cold. Let them say you changed. They will never know what it cost to see the world without illusion. They will never carry what you carry, the weight of control, the burden of foresight, the violence of restraint. And so you walk on not as a man trained to please, but as a force shaped to endure, not as a servant of ideals, but as a steward of necessity. The throne does not forgive softness. It does not tolerate sentiment. It waits only for the one who is willing to become what the moment demands, brutal, silent, precise. That is the architecture now. That is the inheritance you claimed the moment you stopped asking to be useful and started becoming something else entirely. Respected, feared, remembered. Not because of who you were, but because of what you chose to become.